I've been thinking about this a lot lately.
Oh.
Before we invented roads, what was the point of maps? Or like what were on maps?
I guess landmarks? Like
or
I don't
big tree here?
Yeah, probably. Well, I think that's how maps worked originally, right?
I don't know. I'm like when the people came to like colonize Florida or whatever, where they had just like
the Spanish,
yes,
the Spanish guys, conquistadors. Was
yes,
it conquistadors?
When the conquistadors came and they were making their maps, what was on the map? I'm so curious.
I feel like they were like big rock, path through trees where you probably won't die. Water here. Water's important. Natural resources. Food,
like a little lake,
good hunting,
a little lake, a little mushroom forest.
Yeah,
but distance, like how are they?
Oh, I don't know how they measured that.
So confused. And then speaking
footsteps?
of maps, yeah. Oh, they were like 10 footsteps this way.
They're like how many steps it took to? How many paces? I feel like paces was a
that's like a real
thing, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know how legit that is.
10 paces to the mushroom forest. And 10 more paces to the big rock.
There you go.
And then speaking of maps, like what is up with gerrymandering?
Gerrymandering?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know
that just
a
seems
whole lot about it. I'll
a
be
little
honest.
rude
Yeah.
to me. Like maps are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then the map from Dora, like what's up with that?
I don't know. He's got all the answers.
He just knows where like the lost bike is. Like it's an all-knowing being.
The map planned it. He's in on it.
Oh, the map is like a crime lord.
Yeah. He's setting Dora up. He's like, Dora, do this for me.
I could see like the Dora cinematic universe.
It exists because of the live action.
Oh my god, yeah. That I actually kind of enjoyed that movie.
I did not see it.
Oh, it was funny.
Oh, I heard decent things.
I was like, this is it's like tongue-in-cheek, like self-aware. I thought it was fun from what I remember. It was a couple years ago, but
yeah,
I think I was like, oh, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Pleasantly surprised.
But I could see a sequel
Dora.
where it turns out Map is like
evil.
Yeah, and has been setting up Dora for years, collecting evidence.
How did they do the map thing in the movie? Did they do the map thing?
I don't remember, actually.
It's time for a Dora live action rewatch.
Well, welcome back to the Hoot and Holler podcast. Today I have a very, very special guest. This person is an extremely talented artist, a roller skating extraordinaire, and a bit of a Shrexpert.
Oh.
Welcome to the podcast, Rowan.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited. I've been getting ready for this for a long time. So I'm very excited to be here.
You came in with a notebook. You're the first guest to come prepared with notes.
Wow.
So I'm really impressed.
I had to get my story straight because it's a lot of information we're about to get into. And it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty crazy story.
Oh yeah, today's topic is all about Shrek. And Rowan prepared a little bit of information about the origins of Shrek and how this story came to be.
Yes, I love animation, and I also love history. And I think animation history is an aspect of animation that often gets left out a lot. And the history of Shrek, the story of how DreamWorks and Shrek specifically came to be, is a wild, wild tale. And I'm really excited to get into it with you because I think you'll like it a lot.
I'm so excited to learn because I know nothing. The only thing I know...
I'm surprised. You're a huge Shrek fan.
I'm a huge Shrek fan, but I don't know. I don't like dive into the history. I just am like, I know every line in the movie.
I mean, I feel like that makes you a bigger fan than me, honestly.
We're fans in different ways.
Fans in different ways. Okay,
Yeah.
That's good. That's fine. We can agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like equivalent but different. Is there a word for that?
Same but different?
We're fraternal.
There we go.
Fraternal fans.
Fraternal fans of Shrek.
Yes. But the only thing I really know is that I think it's based on a book.
Yes. Oh, wow. So you really know like nothing.
That's all I know.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm even more excited now. This is a wild story.
Okay, let's just dive in.
Okay. It is a lot of information. So I would like to preface that so this is a story about Shrek, but it is also a story about a great many other things. It's a story about power struggles, corporate espionage, betrayal.
Oh my God.
There is a helicopter crash, 2 untimely deaths, It is a story about underdogs and greed and power, and also like the sheer willpower it takes to make a movie. Just the absolute insanity that it happened, like that they went through to get Shrek to screen is just incredible.
I'm already shook. Deaths?
Yeah, 2.
Okay.
2.
Oh
You
my
can't
God.
make this up. It's the kind of story where like if you were being told it and you didn't know it was real, it sounds fake.
Okay.
It's just a wild story. And I also think that Shrek is a story about love, because at its core, the story of Shrek is one of love. And specifically this story, I feel like has a lot of love for story specifically and love for animation.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's really nice. And also, like, I'd like to preface, like, let the record show that this is a Cliff Notes version of this story.
Okay.
I did my best to shorten this as much as possible so people aren't sitting here for like 2 hours, because it's a very long story. And there are a great many much smarter people than me who have really, really like researched this story, and a lot of parts of the story, a lot more than I have. So if you want to know more about this story, the information is out there. You can find it. I just think it's neat and I love animation. So I was like, this is a story I think is worth telling. So are you familiar with Jeffrey Katzenberg?
Jeffrey Katzenberg. I know the name.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
Wow. Okay. And honestly, I feel like most people know his name, but not a lot of people know like about the man.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey Katzenberg started as an assistant, and he worked his way up the production ladder at Paramount. And eventually, he became the president of production under a guy who was the CEO, like president of Paramount at the time, a guy named Michael Eisner.
Oh, we know him.
Well, my next question, what do you know about Michael Eisner?
Michael Eisner, I know that he was like a big spender, right, at the Disney theme parks, and he's responsible
very much
for
so,
like
yeah.
building a lot of the big attractions and lands that we know and love today.
Yes. He was a huge theme park man. He is, I want to say, almost single-handedly the reason why international Disney parks exist.
Yeah.
Like, don't quote me on that. Like, I'm sure there are other people and other things involved, because making a theme park is very much a teamwork and a labor of love. However, I do believe he is responsible for greenlighting all of those projects. He greenlit like Tokyo Disney Sea, as well as like Paris Disneyland, Hong Kong. It's like Shanghai Disneyland, I think.
Yeah.
All of those.
To varying degrees of success.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He's had some hits, he's had some misses, but he was deep into the theme parks.
Yes, he was. Eisner was the CEO of Disney from 1984 to 2005.
Okay.
Which is a pretty long and successful run. And I really think he is most well known for being one of the most like successful Disney CEOs, even though the end of his tenure did get a little rocky.
Okay.
And he really brought Disney like back from the brink of death after the actual death of Walt Disney in 1966.
Oh my gosh.
So Disney had like been in decline for a while. The company, not the man. The man passed in 1966. So
rest in peace.
Rip Walt
Rip
Disney.
His floating head. His frozen
It's
floating
out there.
head.
Believers know. True believers believe. But Disney had really like been in decline after his death, especially the animation sector. And the 80s was like a really bad time for Disney. Early 80s specifically, and the 70s. Not a super lucrative or successful time. I think a lot of sources say that they kind of like lost their way, and without like their visionary guy behind the helm, a lot of times like the ideas were muddy and the movies weren't quite hitting the same way they used to. And you also get a really wide range of like really interesting movies during this time where
I
like
was gonna say, because I know there was like the dark ages with the I think there were 2 dark ages though, because the one I'm thinking of is like Hercules and Emperor's New Groove, but that was like the second one, right?
Yes, that's the second one.
So what was the first dark age?
Like Fox and the Hound came out during this time period.
Okay.
Like the movies that came out early 80s and the 70s.
Yes, gotcha.
Sword in the Stone.
Great Mouse Detective? Was that later?
Great Mouse Detective was a little bit later.
Okay,
and
okay.
actually, Great Mouse Detective did pretty well for Disney, weirdly enough.
love that movie.
It's a great movie. It's a great film. But yeah, a lot of the early stuff, those movies are like tonally completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So they really kind of didn't have as much like creative direction. I think they were kind of lost. So Eisner came on during this time period, and he took over, and it was like that super nanny meme where she's like, "You guys are in crisis. I'm on my way." That was Michael Eisner coming in.
Oh, I love it.
And he brought Jeffrey Katzenberg with him.
Okay.
Oh, and also, like, I mean, you already said a lot of it, but like Eisner is the reason Disney owns ABC. And he's also the reason why Disney owns a lot of ESPN and the Muppets. And the reason behind all the park stuff. Not specifically him, but like a big part of it. So he did a very good job. He did a lot of good things for Disney that we're still seeing today.
Yeah, if he's responsible for Kermie,
yeah,
I'm on board.
He was responsible for the Muppets joining Disney. Yeah.
Okay, I love it.
So when he started, and this was 1984 that he started, he put Katzenberg in charge of Touchstone Pictures at the time, which was like their adult live action like division. So Katzenberg at Paramount had been in charge of Star Trek, and he had like revitalized the brand by doing, I think, like the first Star Trek like motion picture.
Okay.
And when he put him in charge of Touchstone, he essentially was like, fix this. And Katzenberg did. And some of the films that like went into production and were made during the time he was in charge were like Good Morning Vietnam, Dead Poets Society, Pretty Woman, like mega hits.
Yeah, big hits.
Yeah, he was making good money.
And that's all through Disney? I had no clue.
Yes, yeah, Disney owned Touchstone Pictures.
Huh.
Interesting. So Eisner was like, yeah, this is pretty good. I got another challenge for you, man. Can you fix Disney feature animation? And there's like a very famous story where Michael Eisner brings in Jeffrey Katzenberg like on his first day in Disney. Once again, this is 1984 that this happened. And he sits him down at his big desk and he points out the window and he's like, do you know what they do over there? And he points at the animation building across the way. And Jeffrey Katzenberg is like, I got no idea. Like, I don't know what's over there. And Michael Eisner says, like, that's where they make the animated movies. And he was like, and now it's your problem.
Whoa.
And he made Jeffrey Katzenberg the chairman of Walt Disney Feature Animation.
Wait, so he had no experience in animation before this?
None.
He was like Dead Poet Society.
Absolutely
let me take this
nothing.
man. Okay.
He's like, are you Eisner, up for the challenge?
He must have seen potential in him somehow.
Well, and I really do think they were forged in the fires of Paramount together because when Eisner came from Paramount, he brought Jeffrey Katzenberg with him. So obviously he liked working with the man enough to be like, you got to come with me to Disney because we're going to do great things here. Wow. And they did. Like, they really did. Some interesting stuff.
It's a relationship industry.
Truly.
It really is.
Truly. And especially back in like the 80s and the 90s, I would say more so maybe than it is now. Just like to a crazy degree. So at this point, the three guys in charge of Disney are Frank Wells, who is the COO. He's the chief operating officer. Michael Eisner, who is the CEO, and Michael Eisner's right-hand man, Katzenberg, as the chairman, and in charge of like production management stuff for Walt Disney Animation.
Okay.
And Frank Wells kind of worked as like the go-between between those two, because the story is also kind of infamous for like ego.
Ooh.
All of them were like, complicated men who had big egos, but also were big success stories. They had come from really successful Hollywood backgrounds. And I'm talking like Hollywood in the 70s and the 80s, which is alien almost to Hollywood now. A very different environment to come up in. So big egos, but also like big success, big money. Frank Wells definitely, I think, worked as sort of a go-between between the two of them because Frank was reportedly one of the more like down-to-earth guys, very chill, very calm, but also very like jokey and funny, and also a little bit of a daredevil, which we'll come back to.
Okay.
So Katzenberg took over the management of Disney, and initially it was a disaster. It went very, very bad. First. And this is reportedly because Jeffrey Katzenberg is not a very sensitive man and he had never worked closely with artists before. So like you said earlier, he had no animation experience at all. The man started and immediately was like, you guys are doing bad. Like, you're not making any money. This won't work. And naturally, the Disney artists at this time were like, who is this man? What is he doing coming in here trying to tell us these things?
This strange, scary man.
Yes, yeah, who came from a very like business-oriented, crazy Hollywood background, was thrown into like Disney feature animation like a bull in a china shop, just comes in and is like, let's start chopping things up. Like, let's see what we can do. So naturally, he was very, very unpopular at first.
Okay.
And, you know, he was trying to make changes he thought would be smart and make Disney money, but a lot of those changes were very poorly received, especially by the artists. And the first place this happened, kind of infamously, was the movie The Black Cauldron.
Oh.
Have you ever seen The Black Cauldron?
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, okay. So The Black Cauldron is based on this like children's book series called like The Chronicles of Prydain, I think. Oh. I've never read the book series. I've seen the movie. The movie is kind of rough. It is a cult classic, though, as many old Disney movies tend to be. And also had some very interesting tonal choices because most of the movie had been completed before Katzenberg started.
Okay.
So The Black Cauldron was kind of the last movie from that dark age, that period of time where the movies being released were really confused. And Jeffrey Katzenberg started, he saw the almost completed Black Cauldron 2D animation. And the Black Cauldron was, I want to say, 44 million to make, so it was millions over budget.
Oh my god!
Yes, just a
Back
crazy.
Then, that's so expensive.
A crazy amount of money. Okay. And had been in production since like 1973, and the movie came out in 1985.
What?
Yeah. So it
12 years.
Yes, a crazy, crazy, wild time this movie had been through. And Jeffrey Katzenberg came in and he saw like one of like the final screening for the movie and was like, "This won't work. Like, it's not good. It's really dark and scary. It will scare the children. The children will not want to see this movie if this part is in it." So he went in and he was like, "We're going to edit this movie." And they were like, "You don't just edit Disney movies." And he was like, "Watch me."
Oh my god.
That was not a popular choice. So he cut out like a whole chunk of the ending and made them redo it. So it was supposed to come out in 1984 and it ended up coming in 1985 because of this. And all the artists and people who worked on it were pissed. They were like, why did he do this? He's not one of us. He doesn't understand. And in spite of that, it still went on to be a box office bomb. It made like maybe half of its money back.
Wow.
Like it did not do well. And it was a bad time for everyone involved. Like I said, the artists and animators hated him. During this time period, he actually ended up making some very good financial and some very good production like decisions.
Okay.
And let the record show, he was also tempered by some very, very smart artists at the time. But like this is like the Disney golden age that they ushered in. It's Disney Renaissance, if you're familiar with like any of the Disney terms.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
This is like Little Mermaid, Aladdin.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Lion
Yeah.
King.
Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King.
All the best.
Yes. Yeah. Pocahontas, I believe, is also on that list. I'm talking like mega millions brought Disney back to life from the brink of death. And this was under the leadership of Eisner and Katzenberg and Frank Wells.
Okay.
Like I said, he was tempered by some very smart artists because there was kind of like this infamous story during the production of Little Mermaid. They showed Katzenberg and Eisner and Wells a screening, like an early screening of the movie, but the story had been finalized. Sort of. They were trying to figure out the last bits and pieces. And they watched it. And afterwards, Katzenberg was like, "I don't like part of your world.
What?
I want you to get rid of it." He's like, "It's too slow. People are going to like fall asleep during it. They're not going to like it." And the people, you know, the storyboard artist, the storyboard director, all these people who had worked on it were like, "You need part of your world. Part of your world makes the story work." They're like, "You can't have that movie without that part." And Katzenberg was like, "Are you sure?" And like so many people who had worked on the movie were like, "Well, you need part of your world." And he was like, "Okay, I guess it stays." And you know, Little Mermaid doesn't work without part of your world.
Yeah, it's the most iconic song in the whole movie.
Exactly.
And it's her whole like motivation behind everything she does. Okay, so he's a little bit of a crazy man.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, he was trying to do whatever he thought would make Disney the most money.
Okay.
And he was like, "The kids don't want to see this mermaid singing about her feelings." But, you know, they did. They did want to see that. So that was a case of him being wrong, but he was, you know, trying to do the right thing for the movie, even though it didn't end up being the right thing. And thank God he was stopped.
And it's good that he listened.
Yes.
You know, because I think the wrong person in charge
would have been like, "Nope."
Exactly.
We're doing what I want.
And same thing with Black Cauldron. Like,
yes.
if that happened in the modern day, they would have said 12 years of work. We're just going to get a tax write-off and bury this movie forever.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Even
Different
though
time.
I understand the artists' frustrations and I'm with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than what they do today. So
Yes.
that's, at least he tried to put something out there, which
Truly.
is nice.
Well, and I mean, it's 2D animation, so they had to like redraw the whole ending, which I think
Wow.
added some animosity.
Yeah.
I would have been mad too. I
And it's
get
probably
it.
like hand drawn back then too.
Oh, he was hand drawn. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Disney in the 80s, most definitely hand drawn animation. Hand drawn
Wow.
2D animation. But yeah, so he was making big hits. He was making big money under Eisner and Wells, but Katzenberg definitely had a part of it as well. And what did Katzenberg want for his success? He wanted a promotion. So essentially, he wanted Frank Wells' job as COO, Chief Operating Officer of Disney, the corporation.
Okay.
Eisner was like, you can't have Frank's job, but as soon as Frank retires, you will be my first call. Katzenberg was like, cool, sounds good. And this was also the time period in which their egos did start to come into play again. Because I do believe Katzenberg had wanted the job for a while. And Eisner kept being like, be patient, wait. You can't have this job right now because Frank is doing it. And Frank was, I want to say, 62. So he was an older gentleman. He was probably going to retire relatively soon.
Okay. So it wasn't like an unreasonable.
No. And, Katzenberg had been at Disney for so long and he'd done so well. I don't think it was like an unreasonable request to be like, hey, make me on the same playing field as you. Put me up with you. And, it makes sense because I joined you here and you helped me get here and I want to help you and we could be on the same team. So, like I said earlier, Frank Wells was kind of known for being the liaison between the two of them. Whenever they were having problems, Frank Wells acted as kind of like the go-between. He'd be like, it's not that serious. We can calm down. He'd make a joke. He was kind of like a jokey, like daredevil sort of man. I think during his time as the chief operating officer, he did some like crazy stuff, like climb Everest.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah, like crazy things. And he ziplined on like the zip line that they used to do Tinkerbell on at like Disney World.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yes. So like, a bunch of other stuff. Where
From the Matterhorn to the castle.
Yes. Yeah. If I was the chief operating officer, I would too. Can't blame the man.
Yeah, for real.
Can't blame the man. So when he did leave the company, it was in like a similarly sort of like dramatic and kind of crazy way. Not funny, but dramatic, certainly.
Oh wow.
Do you wanna take a guess at what it was?
Okay. Did he light something on fire?
This is grim, but I do believe there was fire involved.
Fireworks?
No fireworks.
I really have no clue.
This is our helicopter crash.
No.
Frank Wells died in a freak, tragic accident, helicopter crash. And this is untimely death number 1.
Oh, you made it sound like he quit.
No.
Oh my
God.
No.
I was trying to lead
I was trying to lead
you in the wrong way. I'm so sorry, Eric.
I'm shocked.
I'm trying to keep you
Not
guessing.
a helicopter death.
Yes, a helicopter death. Very, very dramatic, very tragic. And everyone at the company was pretty naturally shocked and blindsided by this. No one was expecting it. It was a huge tragedy, and all of them were like, oh my God, like the man has dedicated years of his life to this company. Like, what do we do now? And they were all sad, but Katzenberg was like, it's my turn. You told me that when he was done, it was my turn to take this role. Can you say in his shoes, you would have done something differently?
I don't know. I think maybe I would have waited a little bit of time.
That's the key
between
right
the death.
there. Yep.
Yeah, and
Yep.
let everyone mourn and have their moment, and then maybe ask.
Yes, he didn't wait long enough,
Yeah.
and that was also important because they did definitely try to use that against him later.
Oh no.
He was like, hey, I've waited in line. It's my turn. And Eisner ignored this. And he took the responsibilities of the job for himself.
Oh.
So instead of hiring someone else to do the job, Eisner said, I do both now. I'm COO and CEO. And no one's going to take the COO job. And Jeffrey Katzenberg was like, what do you mean it's just you? What do you mean?
Yeah, wait. Is there a reason?
he didn't want Katzenberg to have it.
Oh, he's just salty. He's
Yeah.
a salty man.
He was angry. Yeah.
Okay.
Little petty, you know?
Yeah.
Little bit of rage there. He took the job for himself, and this was like the ultimate betrayal to Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Oh, yeah.
Understandably,
Yeah.
I think. And another important thing to note here is that Roy Disney, do you know who Roy Disney is?
The brother.
No, the nephew.
Oh, the nephew.
Yes.
Sorry.
And at the time, during the 80s and the 70s, he was the only person left on the chair, on the board of Disney, who had the Disney name.
Okay.
So Roy Disney's role in the company tended to be like, what would Walt do? What would my
someone's gotta
brother
do
have
it.
done? Yeah. So he took that on himself. And it is worth noting that Roy Disney hated Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Oh, wow.
He did not like him at all. Not one bit. He thought he was pompous and rude, and he took too much credit for like the Disney mega hits. The truth of the matter is, we'll never know who was right. This story is so complex, and there's so many different sides to it. And, you know, in a lot of ways, history is told by the winners. But
Yeah.
I'll leave it to your judgment by the end of the story who the winner was.
That's so interesting to me that he would be upset with the person who I feel like kind of brought Disney into this new era with
Yes.
all those hits.
Yeah, so it's a pretty fraught emotional situation. And it, like, you know, their friendship soured. So Jeffrey Katzenberg leaves Disney in disgrace, fired by most accounts,
What?
in 1994. I don't think it was specifically that he was fired. I think his contract ended and it was not renewed.
Oh my God.
So, but he left in disgrace. Like the board of Disney had some very nasty things to say about the man. They were not a fan of him. And he leaves Disney right around the time that Lion King premieres. And it's so sad because like Lion King was a movie he helped to make, and Lion King made Disney millions of dollars.
Yeah, it was like the most successful animated movie, right? For such a long time.
For a really long time.
In terms of box office, at least.
Yes, yeah. And Katzenberg was like a big part of The Lion King.
Yeah.
He worked on it from like conception all the way to the finish, and he would have been there for the premiere if he hadn't left Disney in disgrace.
Wow.
So like all these different things. And then this, Katzenberg leaving Disney, is the end of part 1 of this story.
Oh my God.
Yes. So
I have a prediction for where this is going.
okay.
Does Katzenberg create DreamWorks?
That's a spoiler. I can't tell you.
Okay.
I can't tell you. But the story definitely, the plot goes some more places.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break, turn the AC back on,
Yes.
and then we'll be back for part 2.
Get hyped, get excited.
Stay tuned. We are back from our break.
Woo!
We are cooled back down to 71 degrees.
A lovely, balmy 71 degrees.
Yeah, we're going to hope it lasts.
Indeed, indeed.
Let's dive back into the story.
All right. So Eric, do you want to recap? Tell me what you remember from the first half.
Oh my gosh.
So we're moving into the second half.
Okay, so a quick recap for the listeners.
Yes.
We have our good friend, Michael Eisner.
Our good friend. Whoa.
He's my close personal friend.
Close personal friend. Not my friend.
You don't like him?
Oh, he's fine.
Okay.
In the way any CEO is. I feel like a good takeaway from this whole story, as with any story about entertainment and Hollywood, is that there are no gods, no heroes, and no idols.
Oh my God.
No gods, no heroes, no idols, and we don't elevate people to ridiculous standards, because at the end of the day, we must remember that they are people and they make mistakes.
Yes, these are not perfect people, but
no.
we can thank some of them for bringing Disney back from the dark ages.
Very much. You know what? Yeah, we can. We can thank him for that. It was very cool of him. Very cool of him to do.
It was so cool. He came from Paramount. He
did.
brought his BFF Katzenberg.
He did do that. Yeah.
He assigned him to fix a couple things that weren't performing very well for Disney.
This is true.
And
yes.
then, his rival Wells unfortunately perished in a very dramatic fireball.
It was bad. Yeah. It was a tragic helicopter accident. I shouldn't be laughing. I'm sorry to this man's memory.
It's
That's
so
rough.
sad.
That's rough.
That's
it's
like,
very tragic.
honestly, one of the top worst ways to die, probably.
Horrific.
That's so scary.
Really, really bad.
Being in any sort of like like I think a car crash, like same way. Anything that involves like a lot of metal and mechanical pieces, or an elevator falling, that's another bad one.
Oh my god, that's like nightmare fuel.
Yeah, plane crash, any sort of like mechanical. But anyway, so
Mechanical.
so when Katzenberg was like, "It's my time to shine,"
Yes.
our good friend Wells has perished, and
Yes.
it's my time to step up.
Yes.
Eisner said no,
Yeah.
and
He did.
and Katzenberg left on horrible terms.
Yes, left in disgrace. The board was dragging his name through the mud in the streets.
Ugh.
They were saying horrible stuff about him. They're like, he's greedy, he's power hungry, and he's bad at his job, which is the only part of that may or may not be true.
In your opinion,
In my opinion.
are you kind of like team board, Disney board? Like, do you think he was? Do you think Katzenberg was this kind of?
See, no, I'm Team Katzenberg.
Okay.
I love a story about vengeance.
Yeah.
And this story is very much about spite.
Oh, I'm excited to hear.
We got a juicy second half.
Let's do it.
Okay, so poetry in motion. 10 years later, he had started at Disney with Eisner in 1984. And in 1994, Spielberg, Katzenberg, and a man named David Geffen, founded DreamWorks. So exactly 10 years later, he was in a completely different environment than the one he had started in. He had risen, he had fallen at Disney, and now it was time for vengeance.
Yes.
So he founded DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg, David Geffen. You know who Steven Spielberg is.
Of course.
Who doesn't?
E.T.
Exactly.
Jurassic Park.
Directing legend, shall we say.
Yes.
And also a noted animation fan. We love Steven Spielberg in this house because not only does he love animation was his first love. His first film love was
No
animation.
way.
He also studied animation at, I want to say, Cal State Long Beach.
No way.
Originally,
I had no clue.
we have a soft spot for anyone who went to a state school and loves animation. And then David Geffen was a record producer / CEO, and he and Katzenberg I think they were friends for like a long time before this. But one of their like claims to fame was that Geffen and Katzenberg worked together on The Little Mermaid because Geffen brought him Howard Ashman and Alan Menken.
Wow.
So the duo that made Little Mermaid, and also I want to say Beauty and the Beast. So the three of them were like, we're making DreamWorks, and we're making DreamWorks now. They moved fast. They jumped straight into things, straight into production.
Wow.
And one of these things was the movie Ants.
Okay.
So what do you know about the movie Ants, Eric?
I don't know much, but I know
That's
that
so fair.
It came out around the same time as Bug's Life, and they were both like animated movies about ants, which was
that is what this
interesting.
part of the story is about, actually.
Oh, okay.
Ants was essentially speedrun to beat Bug's Life to theaters.
Oh,
And
it came out first?
Yes.
Oh,
and
no way.
the reason why is like very dramatic. We have now reached the corporate espionage section of our story. So, like I said, at DreamWorks, they were moving fast. They had, I think it was like 5 or so projects in development from the get-go. And a lot of these were things that Spielberg had purchased the rights to previously or had gotten pitched to him or something. DreamWorks had hired and worked with a small company called PDI for their 3D animation at the time because DreamWorks, was newly established, didn't quite yet have artists and in-house yet. Mm-hmm. So they hired PDI to animate Ants for them. We'll rewind a little bit. Ants came out in 1998 of October. So in 1995, the animation game was changed forever to this day when the movie, do you want to guess, Eric?
Is it Bug's Life?
No, Toy Story.
Oh, Toy Story, first CGI.
When Toy Story came out and changed the animation game forever. Toy Story, the first 3D animated movie. And also really the genesis of Pixar on the scene. And Pixar, the story of Pixar is also fascinating, but I will not be getting into it today because it's its own ridiculous and crazy story. All you really need to know at this time is that Pixar and Disney worked together to make Toy Story.
Yes.
And essentially Disney provided the funds and Pixar made Toy Story. They did all the work, and Disney essentially provided, I think, some creative leadership, as well as, they funded the movie.
Okay, gotcha.
And one of the creative leadership parts of this was Jeffrey Katzenberg, actually. He was involved in early Pixar, and he was really involved with Toy Story because he knew John Lasseter, who directed Toy Story, back when John Lasseter was at Disney.
Okay.
So right after Katzenberg left Disney, he had gotten lunch or something with John Lasseter and was like, "Oh, how you been, man? What's up? Tell me about what's going on in your life." And John Lasseter was like, "Wow, crazy what happened to you. That's rough. Anyways, I'm working on this movie called Bug's Life." Ooh, indeed. He
spilled.
Oh, yeah. He spilled. And Katzenberg went back and was like, "I feel like we got a similar pitch recently." So he went and found a script for a little movie called Ants. So they speed ran production on Ants out of their 5 early projects so they could beat Bug's Life to theaters.
No way.
Yes. Yeah. And John Lasseter was like, friendship over. Friendship ended with Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Yeah, you took this information
We're done.
I told in confidence.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he used it to get ahead. They beat Bug's Life to theaters with their Ant movie first. And they're similar, but they're also very, very different movies. They're about different things. And also, because they'd had more time to prepare for Bug's Life, the marketing and commercial aspect of Bug's Life was a lot more successful because they rushed Ants. They didn't have time to prepare as much. So as a result, Ants kind of came and went in the night. And Bug's Life made them $1 million, millions of dollars. So in that case, they were like, it doesn't even matter. We're still winning. Pixar and Disney are coming out on top. It doesn't even matter if you're doing your best. DreamWorks is not going to win. And Katzenberg said, really? Okay, let's go. Let's I'm not going to give up that easily.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
Oh, absolutely. And he was looking for vengeance, essentially. He was doing whatever he could to really make sure that, DreamWorks was able to come out on top. He wanted to beat Disney at its own game, which is where Prince of Egypt came from.
Ooh,
because Prince of
going back
Egypt
to 2D.
was also one of those early movies they'd had in development from day one of DreamWorks.
Okay.
I think Spielberg had the idea before, and Katzenberg was like, "It's an awesome idea." They were really banking on Prince of Egypt putting them on the map.
Yeah.
And Prince of Egypt did well, but not well enough to, beat out the Disney movies that were out at the time.
Oh, no,
it did well.
That was a fantastic movie.
It's a beautiful movie. I think to this day, it's one of DreamWorks' finest.
Yeah.
But it did not do crazy well financially for them right off the bat.
Oh, that's sad.
So the DreamWorks strategy at the time was to release about 2 movies a year.
Okay.
And these 2 movies a year were Ants, which came out in 1998 of October, Prince of Egypt, which was 1998 December.
Got it.
El Dorado came out in 2000 March.
Oh, that was
and then
also a
Chicken
good one.
Run was 2000 in June.
Okay.
And like I said, they were releasing these movies fast. They were going as fast as humanly possible to try and get out these movies to beat Disney at their own game. And they were still failing pretty miserably. No matter what they were doing, it kind of wasn't enough. So we're going to rewind for a second. And this is where we really enter the story of Shrek.
Yes.
So in his 80s, a children's book author named William Steig wrote a picture book called Shrek.
Oh, what a great name.
And I don't know if you have ever actually looked at the book. If not, I do recommend it. You can still find it. It's a very sweet book. It's very nice. And a lot of the core aspects of the book do actually make it into the movie. Because at its core, the book is about finding self-confidence and finding self-esteem no matter who you are, and that everyone is deserving of love. And it's a really cool and funky, fun little book. So if you do get a chance to read it, I do recommend. It's really good.
Cute.
And the story goes that the book was a favorite of the children of producer John H. Williams, who was an early DreamWorks guy. And he was friends with Katzenberg, and he knew him. And apparently his 2 sons loved the book so much, and he read it to them before they went to bed at night. It's like a bedtime story. And they imprinted on the book so much they were quoting passages of it at each other and at him. And he was like, "This is the movie we need to make. This story clearly is resonating with children. We need to make this story." So he pitched the idea to Jeffrey Katzenberg, who then found out that way back in 1991, and this was the time that Beauty and the Beast was being made, Steven Spielberg had actually bought the rights to the book.
Oh, perfect.
with the intent to make a 2D animated feature with it. So he was like, I already own the rights to this book. I want to make this movie. So it was like a weird stroke of destiny. And it was actually one of the first things that they had in development way back when they were founded in 1994. Now, Shrek came out in 2001. So the journey to Shrek was very long.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know
very difficult.
Okay.
It suffered some pretty wild setbacks along the way. So an early version of the movie was actually finished by 1997. I don't know how finished it was, but they had enough to put together a whole screening.
Okay.
And it was a completely different story than what actually ended up being like the Shrek we know. And a big part of this story was Chris Farley. Do you know who Chris Farley is?
No. Again, I recognize the name.
It's okay. The only reason I know who Chris Farley is because one of my good friends is a Saturday Night Live mega fan.
Okay.
She's a huge fan, and she's watched like a lot of the early stuff. And Chris Farley came from Saturday Night Live, SNL. And he's a comedian, and he was a pretty famous comedian. He was originally attached to the project as Shrek. He was supposed to play Shrek.
Oh.
He was the original voice of Shrek, and this version of Shrek was actually a teenager. So it was supposed to be about Shrek, a young teenage ogre who didn't want to go into the family business of like scaring and extorting like townspeople. He wanted to be a knight.
No way.
Yeah, so a completely different story than the story that ended up on the screen. And I feel like aspects of it, like the knight aspect kind of stayed.
Yeah.
As well as, like him not wanting to be a bad person or perceived the way he is because of the way he looks.
Was that how the original storybook went?
The original storybook is definitely more of a framework, I would say, for how the movie went. They definitely departed pretty dramatically.
Okay, even in this early version.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The original storybook, I would say it's less of like it's more of like you're just following Shrek as he's like going through his life. He's just doing things,
Okay, yeah.
He gets married, he terrorizes some people, but the moral of the story of the original Shrek is essentially love yourself.
Okay.
Which I do think is a core aspect of Shrek that managed to make it all the way to screen and all the way to the Shrek we know and love.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that early version of Shrek that was voiced by Chris Farley was very, very different from the Shrek that we know and love today. And also, this is where it gets like really crazy, Eric. This version of Shrek, this early version of Shrek, was half live action.
Half? Mm-hmm. Okay.
The animation was originally done with mocap suits. It was supposed to be kind of like sort of Roger Rabbit-esque, where like Shrek and a lot of the fairy tale creatures would be animated, but there would be live action sets, and they made like little models and all this stuff. And they'd filmed like large aspects of the movie. There used to be like, I think, an intro where like a grandfather was reading his granddaughter like a bedtime story, and that was the intro originally for the film.
No freaking way.
Very Never Ending Story, or very Princess Bride.
Bride, that's what I was
That's
thinking
the
of.
one. Yeah, I don't know where I got Never Ending Story from. This version of the movie, this early version of Shrek, did so poorly at their first screening that everyone in the theater, Katzenberg, Spielberg, everyone there was like, this is not gonna work.
Okay.
They're like, this movie, not gonna work. So they essentially made the entire movie from scratch again as a fully 3D animated movie.
Oh my God.
Apparently there was an animator who said that being sent to work on Shrek was like a punishment. Because the movie had been in development for so long. It was like, oh, you're being sent to work on Shrek. It was like being sent to like the gulag being sent to work on like a movie that was never going to be made, because at the time they didn't know what it was going to be. They had no idea. Everyone had their hopes pinned on Prince of Egypt as the movie that was going to put them on the map. So getting sent to work on Shrek was like, you're doing bad and we don't want you on our mega money project. We're going to put you on our doesn't matter project.
Wow, and look what happened.
Absolutely crazy, yes. And during this time period, 1997, around the time when they were seriously reworking the story and the look of the film, Chris Farley tragically overdosed in his apartment.
Oh no.
He was 33. He was really young.
Wow.
And this is our second untimely death. And at the time, it's reported that he had, I want to say like 80 to 90% of his lines done for Shrek, but not enough to finish the film.
Okay.
So they were like, can we make this movie without our star power? He was attached to the movie and he was Shrek. he was the main character, and also like the movie had in a lot of ways been designed around him. This is really interesting. You can find clips and snippets of Chris Farley's Shrek out there. It's lost media.
Love to see this.
It's lost media, but it does exist and you can find it. Like there have been like, I want to say like eBay auction wars over like storyboards of Chris Farley's version of Shrek.
Wow.
And like there is like filmed stuff out there. You can hear his voice.
Like the live action parts?
I have no idea. I haven't
that.
Found that, but I've seen some boards and it's just interesting stuff. So it's out there. You can look it up.
So
There's
cool.
a lot of different things about the Shrek that might have been. The Shrek that could have been.
Yeah.
A very different Shrek.
Yeah.
Eventually, they recast Shrek, and this is where Mike Myers enters.
Ooh,
yeah.
Our fave.
Our fave.
We love Michael Myers here.
Do we really? Are you a huge Mike Myers fan?
As Shrek. And
as Shrek, yes, I
and
agree.
Also as the cat in the Cat in the Hat.
Oh, so you're a real fan.
He's fantastic.
You're a true fan.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. You know, I'll give it to you. I do love him as Shrek. He's great as Shrek.
Yeah, he made Shrek.
He did. Yeah, he's one of the reasons why I think Shrek works so well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was recast, and part of the agreement of him joining the movie was that they had to completely rewrite the script.
Oh, like that was his terms.
I think
Mike's
so.
terms.
I don't know if it was specifically his, but I think they wanted to depart as much as possible from the Chris Farley version.
Okay, interesting.
It was a completely different movie at this point, with Mike Myers at the helm as Shrek.
Okay.
And this is also a fun little something. Apparently, his Scottish accent, he has Scottish family.
Uh-huh.
And it was him imitating the way his mom used to read bedtime stories to him.
Oh, that's so cute.
And he also has gone on the record, and I thought this was kind of fun and kind of like tongue-in-cheek, and also very representative of like the story of Shrek in general. He's also said that he chose a Scottish accent, and he really pushed for a Scottish accent because he wanted it to be very different from Lord Farquaad's very posh British accent.
Okay.
And he was like,
I can see that.
The Scottish accent is like the working class accent, and Lord Farquaad is evil and he's English. So he was like Scotland versus England, which is its own complicated can of worms.
Oh my God, yeah.
But he was like, it was very distinct choice on my half because I have Scottish family that I want it to be this way.
Huh.
Which I thought was a really interesting thing for him to go say. Yes.
This is why collaboration is important, people.
This is true. You are correct. You are correct.
Thank you.
Movies are an insane labor of love and teamwork.
Yes.
And not one single person should ever take credit for a whole film.
Yeah, you hear that, Katzenberg?
Yes. Yeah. We share the love here. We work together because no one can make a movie by themselves. And if you do, you're crazy. You're crazy for that.
I agree.
You're crazy. Before he settled on the Scottish accent, he was giving them all sorts of different accents, and there is a Canadian Shrek out there.
Ooh.
You can find the clips once again.
Boot.
Yes, yeah, no.
Get your toques.
It's out there. So there's a Canadian Shrek. Go give it a listen.
Cool.
It's crazy. There's also like an American Shrek, kind of funny. I'm not a fan of American Shrek. I think we got lucky when we landed on Scottish Shrek.
Yeah, it just feels right.
Scottish brogue. It's all about the Scottish accent, in my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know. And also, and this is really sweet, Vicky Jensen and Andrew Adamson were the directors for the movie. And I think both of them had actually started as storyboard artists on the film back when it had been started way back in 94.
Oh, so they got promoted in this new
They
version.
did. And it was their directorial feature debuts.
Good for them.
I was
What
like,
a way to go out.
What an insane movie to start on.
Yeah.
Can you imagine your first ever directorial feature debut being Shrek? Like, that
I'd
is
be like,
insane.
my career is over. Like,
that is how you ever
I can retire.
do anything more. It's crazy. It's crazy. And like both of them have gone on to continue working, but yeah, just starting with Shrek is such a wild way to start.
Yeah, has never and will never be topped.
No,
That's
yeah.
a tough start.
But yes, so Shrek was coming together. Shrek was finally happening, and they were trying to beat Pixar because Pixar had to take a little break after Bug's Life and Toy Story 2 because they were working their artists and their animators really hard at an unsustainable rate. And they were like, we can't keep living like this.
I was going to say 2 movies a year sounds super ambitious.
Well, and it's only because they were trying to beat them.
Okay.
I feel like 2 movies a year is kind of insane.
Yeah.
Especially considering like they jumped in with nothing. Like they had some ideas, but they had to start from scratch on all of those things.
That's crazy.
And, you know, I also think it's really interesting to see how kind of experimental they got with early stuff, like at the beginning of DreamWorks, because Ants was 3D, Prince was hand-drawn and a little bit of 3D. El Dorado was hand-drawn, my bad. Chicken Run was stop motion. That's Aardman. And then Shrek was 3D again. So you just, you know, they were trying whatever worked. They were throwing stuff at the wall to see what would stick, which I think is really awesome. It's a really cool strategy, and it's really interesting to see. And it's interesting to see how it has echoed through, I think, the way DreamWorks works, like even today. Like, you know, I feel like DreamWorks is never afraid to try something new, try something weird.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is something that I think we could all use in our lives, you know?
I agree. They brought us so much art.
Yes, yeah. Not every movie can be a winner, but every movie can try to do something that no one has seen before. All of this to say, DreamWorks was not doing super well at the box office during this time period.
Yeah.
They were releasing these movies one after the other, but they weren't beating Disney, they weren't beating Pixar. Almost nothing they had made was working in a way that made them profitable, and it was starting to look kind of grim. And it was around this time for the Cannes Film Festival, they were like, we're going to enter Shrek. So Katzenberg entered Shrek into the Cannes Film Festival.
Okay.
And he entered it for this award called the Palme d'Or, which is like the best film. It's like best picture at the Oscars.
Yeah.
And Shrek got a standing ovation.
Yes.
And he was like, oh, thank God. Like, they like this one.
We love to see it.
And not only did people like this one, I think Shrek went on to break like box office records at the time. Like it did really, really, really well. Like it captured like the cultural zeitgeist. It became a meme, even though memes were not really a thing back in 2001. It entered pop culture and it stayed there, and it's still there in our hearts to this day. Shrek did so well, it put DreamWorks on the map.
I didn't realize it was that powerful. Like
it was
I knew
really
I
powerful.
loved it, but I didn't know it. Wow. Okay.
It did something crazy. Like it went insane. People were like, this is the best movie I've seen in ages. Like this is what it's about. Shrek. Woo! And also to give you some context, the Disney movies that had come out around the same time, also in 2001, were Atlantis.
Okay,
which
flop.
was a box office flop, which Atlantis is its own whole thing. We can't get into we don't got time to get into Atlantis today. And Monsters, Inc.
Oh.
And Monsters, Inc. did really well.
Yeah.
But because Shrek was so unprecedentedly doing numbers for DreamWorks, and unexpected numbers, truly, Monsters, Inc. was not able to beat the box office numbers of Shrek.
Wow, I would not have guessed.
Yes, yeah, Shrek won. Shrek went crazy that year. And I think eventually Monsters, Inc. was able to overtake it, but it definitely was at a disadvantage because when it came out, Shrek was still in theaters. And they were like, oh, this is not great for us. Like,
wow. I'm sure Katzenberg was celebrating that.
I'm sure he was, yes. So we're going to rewind a little bit because there's a key piece of history here that is important to note.
Okay.
Before we finish up the Shrek story. So in 1991, Beauty and the Beast came out to almost universal acclaim.
Oh yeah.
And
didn't it? I think it won the an Oscar, or it was nominated for Best Picture, like the only animated movie ever.
Exactly. It's actually not the only animated movie ever to be nominated, but it was nominated that year for Best Picture. And at the time, it made history as the first animated movie to ever do so.
Yeah.
I think essentially what happened is that the Academy took note of this and said, that's a no-no. They were like, it's fine for an animated movie to be nominated, but Beauty and the Beast got too close to winning.
Really?
So they were like, well, because Beauty and the Beast was like a cultural moment when it came out.
Yeah, I mean, I was shook.
Yeah, I wasn't born yet, but like,
wait, when did it come out?
91.
Oh, just kidding.
Yeah, I was like, you weren't shook, but we love Beauty and the Beast. I grew up with Beauty and the Beast. I adored that movie. That movie is beautiful and still works to this day, which you can't say about every animated movie that came out in the 90s, you know? The Academy, I think, saw how close Beauty and the Beast got to winning. It was beat by Silence of the Lambs, might I add. So very different film, also very deserving.
And also pretty unprecedented because horror movies do not get
91
nominated.
was a weird year for the Oscars. They took note of that and they're like, got too close. Can't have that happening. So what they did is 10 years later, because, it takes some time to make things and to get things going, they created the category for Best Animated Feature Film.
Yeah.
So 91, Beauty and the Beast came out. 10 years later, in 2001, Shrek was the first ever winner for Best Animated Picture in a category that had been created for Disney with a movie that patently mocked Disney.
And they set a high bar for every year after that.
Insane. Yes.
Good for them.
Yeah. Isn't that just wild?
I love it.
The story is crazy. It's so layered. It's insane. And the nominees for that first year were really funky because the nominees were Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius.
Oh, no way. Another great movie.
Yes, a classic. Truly crazy. Doing things previously thought to be, they were like, oh, computer animation's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Shrek and Monsters, Inc., which was the only real competition that Shrek had at the box office.
Yeah.
Atlantis wasn't even nominated.
Ooh, burn.
And Monsters, Inc. and Shrek both ran $1 million campaigns to try and take this category. And Shrek won, and Katzenberg came out on top.
He's the real winner of the story.
It was a wild story. In a lot of ways, the story is about Katzenberg.
Uh-huh.
Because spite was a big motivator in this story.
I think what we've all learned today is that spite just runs the world.
Low-key, yeah, kind of crazy. And to this day, Shrek is still the second highest grossing animated film franchise of all time.
Wow.
It made billions of dollars for DreamWorks, and it is still beating Disney, who comes in third with the Toy Story franchise.
I thought that was going to be number 1.
No, Toy Story is number 3. And you know who number 1 is?
I have no clue.
Number 1 is the Despicable Me franchise.
No.
But that is a story for a different day.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we'll be talking about that later.
Crazy. Yes. But yeah, that's the story of Shrek. And I stand by this. This is my own personal 2 cents. I would watch the heck out of a Succession-style retelling of Eisner, Katzenberg, and Wells, and, all these different players in this.
That would be so
good. It
good.
would be amazing. Disney is very, very particular with their media, and there's no way they would ever let it be made. No. But the story is just, there's so many twists and turns. There's so many things you do not see coming. There's so many characters in it. Like, it's just crazy. And to this day, too, I do think there is some animosity. It's kind of an infamous rumor that, in Incredibles.
Okay. I know Incredibles.
You know Mr. Incredible's boss?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be a caricature of Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Really? The pencil pusher guy?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, there's animosity there. They haven't given up. There's definitely still some bad blood between Pixar and DreamWorks and Disney, and they're competing still to this day. And the story's not over yet. It's still one of those things that's ongoing as long as the companies exist. You just get new players and different triumphs, and there's new wins, and as entertainment goes, I think there's definitely an ebb and a flow to these things.
Yeah.
And because it's such recent history, it's nuanced. There's, like I said, different people who live through it and have different takes on it. And I really think it is up to you as the listener to decide who you think the winner was in this situation, because it's an ever-changing world and it's an ever-changing story.
It is. Yeah. When Illumination came on the scene, that really mixed up the animation game. And I feel like it's always going back and forth now.
It is.
Do you know who made that? Wasn't there this big upset one year with the Oscars where some Yeti movie won Best Picture or something? Or maybe this is the Golden Globes.
Oh, it was the Golden Globes. Yeah. That was Laika.
Yeah, Laika.
Oh, man. Laika's got a fascinating story, too. But Laika is the studio that made Coraline.
Oh, I love Coraline.
Everyone loves Coraline. Coraline's a great movie. Very spooky season.
Wow. That was riveting.
I'm glad you liked it.
I was on the edge of my seat.
Definitely went down a rabbit hole doing all of this research, and I'm hoping that it came across well.
Yeah, thank you for putting together such a coherent and like factual recounting of what happened.
Thank you for letting me yap for like an hour straight, because I had a great time doing it and I love this story. And we need more people documenting the history of entertainment, because there's a lot of stories like this where like movies we know and love like almost didn't get made.
This is another documentary recommendation, but there's a Frozen 2 documentary on Disney Plus.
A fabulous watch.
It's such a good watch, and if you've ever been interested in like how animation is made, that is a great starting place, because you get really a little taste of the whole process.
Indeed. Well, and another really good one too is the Netflix documentary series, The Movies That Made Us.
Oh, I know that series.
That one is wonderful, and that one goes into a lot of really famous ones. And there is actually a single animation episode about The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, that's a good one.
So yeah, we need more. If you are an animation fan, if you love cartoons, like learn about us. Learn about how animation is made, because it's a really cool story and it's a really cool art form, and we are trying to defend it with our lives right now. So people need to be talking about it.
All right, everyone, we're going to move into the Hoot and Holler segment of the podcast. So for anyone who's new that's listening, a hoot is a positive thing that you'd like to share with the world, and your holler is something negative that you want to condemn for everyone to hear.
Oh, okay. When you say it like that.
It's for the population's awareness, you know?
Okay.
You want to be a change maker in this instance.
Okay. All right.
Let's start positive today. Let's start with a hoot.
My hoot and my holler are actually Shrek related.
Oh, perfect.
I did this in particular because I thought it would be a nice addition to this very Shrek episode that we're discussing, our favorite green man. My hoot is the I Need a Hero montage from Shrek 2. That is like one of my favorite pieces of animation ever. I have watched just that one montage like a million times probably. I love the song. I love Fairy Godmother. That single part, it makes that movie for me in so many ways. So if you haven't seen Shrek 2, go watch Shrek 2 and watch Fairy Godmother sing I Need a Hero.
Oh, that's it's incredible. Hoot. I mean, it combines all the best characters of the movie. We have the Fairy Godmother in her stunning red dress.
Yes. Oh, a baddie, a queen.
She's like laying on the piano seductively, and
it's great stuff.
Oh my god, it's beautiful. And then we have Mongo. I think one of the most underrated characters in all of cinematic history.
You're correct. He was only on the screen for like a few minutes, and he was so funny.
He left an impact. I think
really
he influenced a generation.
I agree. Yeah.
Mongo is the giant gingerbread cookie for those.
For the uninitiated. Yes.
And when they pour that steamed milk on him and he comes up with a little George Washington wig.
Comedy.
Beautiful. What a beautiful moment.
An important character introduction. I feel like, obviously we've already met him by this point in the movie, but an important character moment for Puss in Boots. Where he's like, go, your lady needs you. And he's like, I'm going to fight the guys for you while you go off. A fun part. A favorite of mine, personally.
Yes. You know, he can fight both physically with his sword and emotionally with those big kitty cat eyes.
Yes.
This does not top that, but
okay.
And it's not Shrek related.
That's all right.
But my hoot this week is the Hollywood Bowl.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I recently saw Sarah Bareilles perform at the Hollywood Bowl.
Was it magical?
She was fantastic.
Ooh, she's got such a beautiful voice.
I think one of the best voices of all time.
She's wonderful. She's very wonderful. I'm a huge Waitress fan.
Oh, me too.
I love
and
Waitress.
Live, she's incredible. But what made it even more magical is the venue itself. Like everything about the Hollywood Bowl is incredible. It's beautiful. It's like built into the hills.
Yes.
You're like in a little canyon surrounded by mountains. You can see the Hollywood sign. And the shows usually start like right around sunset. So like it's like a beautiful, like that golden hour when you come in. You can bring whatever food and drinks you want. It's like picnic vibes. So unlike other theaters where you're banned from bringing in even like your own water bottle, you can bring bottles of wine. You can bring a case of White Claws.
That's so fun, actually. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I brought like sub sandwiches.
Oh,
it was,
a lovely
and some
afternoon.
wine, some rosé.
A lovely evening.
It was delicious. And then the security situation is crazy. Like we just walked in. Like they didn't even check our bags, our picnic bags. They just had these like weird scanners and you just walk right in. A 10 out of 10 experience. This is the way I want to experience concerts moving forward.
Amazing. I like that. That sounds really fun.
Let's do our hollers.
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So my hollers are Shrek 3 and 4. I'm not a fan. They're not for me. I don't think they're very good movies, but that is my personal opinion. To each their own. If you like them, more power to you. But let the record show, will I be seated for Shrek 5? Yes.
Absolutely.
I will be in that theater. I will probably see it multiple times if I like it the first time. I do that sometimes when I really like a movie. Seated for Shrek 5.
Yes.
I saw Puss in Boots: The Last Wish probably 4 times.
I was going to say, I have
So many times. I
Normally-
loved that movie.
Me too. And normally, like, I wouldn't be super hopeful about a Shrek 5, especially after Shrek 4.
Yeah.
But like Puss in Boots 2 was so good
Incredible.
that I'm like,
An incredible good time.
It was faithful to the franchise, but unique in its own
Yes.
way.
Oh, and I loved the art changes that they did. It was so cool. It looked so good.
I feel like a lot of movies now are all about style, and they they're like, let's just get any script, but then make it look beautiful. But you can tell they put a lot of work into every aspect of that movie. So I'm hoping the same is for Shrek 5.
Yes.
But
Fingers crossed.
So Shrek
I'm hoping.
4, like, yeah, I agree. But Shrek 3, I think, does have some redeeming qualities. Like,
To each their own.
There's
It's
some
not for me,
iconic-
but I love that for you.
the baby nightmares, that was my favorite part of that movie, where like Donkey has like the head of a baby.
Oh.
And it's like, da. Do you remember that scene?
I think so, yeah. I'm not a fan. Because 3 is the King Arthur one, right? Where he's trying to find someone to take over. And then 4 is the time travel one.
Yes.
Yes.
With Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah.
Scary. Yeah, like 3, I think I love the fatherhood aspect of it, and I love the pressure of taking over the kingdom. But the King Arthur storyline is where it loses me. And I feel like if they found a way to make it work without that, it could have remained like
I agree.
in the reigns. But.
I haven't done as much like in-depth research on the other movies, though I am interested in it. I wonder if there's any interesting production stories from all of those movies, because I bet there is.
Yeah.
I just haven't gone and looked it up, but I'd be interested to see the movies we could have gotten.
Because I think
different aspects, the Shreks that almost were, if you will.
I think there was a significant gap between each Shrek movie. So like you could tell DreamWorks was trying to take care and not just churn out a sequel as soon as possible. Because I think it was like 5 or 6 years between each movie. So unfortunately they weren't all winners, but hopefully Shrek 5 brings us back.
Yes. Well, and you know what? Clearly, people did like him enough to keep going and seeing him, because the franchise, like I said, is the second highest grossing animated film franchise of all time. So it definitely was successful.
Yeah.
It did well for DreamWorks. And I think definitely helped carve out Shrek as a mainstay of popular culture.
I would say give 3 another try.
Okay.
I definitely don't think it compares to 1 and 2.
No.
But I don't think it's bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My holler this week is genetically modified foods.
Oh, you don't like them?
But not for the reason you might think.
Oh, okay.
I just don't think we're doing enough.
Oh.
Like,
I would agree.
I think we need to take it a step further, because the way we're doing things with this GMO stuff, it's so odd to me. Like, we're making cotton candy grapes.
I know.
Okay, you can make grapes taste like cotton candy, but why don't we make like grapes have protein? Or why don't we make grapes have like lower your cholesterol, or like things that would actually be useful to us?
Well, there's a couple of really useful GMOs that I feel like are definitely out there and are used. We just don't hear about them.
Oh.
Like they made like a strain of drought-resistant corn.
Okay, see,
and
this
like
is what I'm talking about.
Drought-resistant rice.
Yeah, we need that.
They've done those things.
Okay.
So those things are growing and they are out there. And then one, like a fruit one that I really like and I think is really interesting. I forget what the type of apple is called, but they made a type of apple that doesn't brown. So when you cut an apple and it browns?
Yeah.
They were able to genetically modify a type of apple that doesn't brown when you cut it. So the apple looks fresh for much, much longer. And because of that, much less apples are being wasted.
Oh, see, I was going to say, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It is a good thing because a lot of people don't eat apples if they're a little brown. I'm not one of those people, but plenty of people apparently feel that way.
I'm one of those people for sure. Yeah, if it's brown, I'm like, it's gone bad.
No, if it's a little, I'll still eat it. But yeah.
Huh.
A lot of people
Because I was like,
will
if
not.
it doesn't go brown, then you don't know how fresh it is. So grocery store could sell like
I
apple
feel
slices
like
that
it
are...
would still go. If it was like rotting, it will still rot, but it doesn't
Okay.
go brown like immediately. Like, if
Okay,
you
yeah,
cut an
yeah.
apple and you leave it on the counter, it'll brown in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It won't brown like that. I think it
Huh.
takes like several hours.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, still, I would love
More.
like more.
Yeah.
But a reduction in waste is nothing to sneeze at.
I agree. Yes. Well, and like, I feel like a lot of people feel like GMOs are like fear mongering, or they use GMOs to fear monger. Like, I used to work at a grocery store, and at this grocery store we had it was a fancy organic grocery store. So shall we say, maybe fancy is the wrong word, but it was very like focused around like organic and farm to table and stuff.
Yeah.
And in this store, I would be helping customers and they would be like, oh yeah, like, don't show me the like GMO tomatoes. Like, I'm not going to buy them. I don't eat GMO things. And I'm like, I don't even think you know that you're eating GMOs, because you are. You definitely are. You just don't know it.
Interesting.
And also, most GMOs help us.
I was gonna say, like, why do GMOs have a bad rep? Because I feel like they're making it better in some way.
I feel like a lot of people are like, they're putting hormones in the plants, which is not true.
Yeah, right. Because
not true at all.
Organic.
Yes.
Can something be both organic and GMO? I feel like it would be, right?
I don't know.
Because organic is more like it's used without pesticides or like creepy chemicals, but GMOs
I think you're right. That would make sense to me.
Right.
Is something can be organic and GMO?
Because what I would think, like, GMO is like you're changing the DNA in some way.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know.
If they can actually benefit us and not just like make grapes sweeter, I'm all for GMOs, I think.
More sugar in the grapes.
Maybe I need
That's
to do
the answer.
Maybe I need to do more research, because maybe there is bad stuff about GMOs, but it seems positive.
I feel like if there is bad stuff, it's pretty minimal.
Yeah.
It might be more in like we don't necessarily know all the different outcomes that these can have on the environment when we're introducing these things. And also that we don't necessarily know the outcomes that it will have on people necessarily. Yeah. If you're putting two genes together and they get a little funky, if things get a little weird. But I would say by and large, most GMOs are a net good, in my personal opinion.
So scientists, please get on that. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, listeners, so much for joining us in this beautiful episode. And thank you, Rowan, for being such a wonderful fountain of knowledge.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun. I had a great time.
I love this episode. This is a huge departure for this podcast, because I don't do any research on anything.
Oh, okay.
I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. So this is going to be like listeners are going to be informed.
I hope so. I hope they have a good time learning the crazy history of DreamWorks and Shrek.
Yeah. I know I did.
I hope it was a good time.
It was great.
I love this story. So more people know about it, the better. I think it's interesting.
Well.
Bye. Bye, loyal Hoot and Holler listeners.
Bye.
We love Eric.